Om Shri Sai Ram. With utmost humility and love, I offer myself at the lotus feet of our most beloved Swami. And I'm extremely grateful to him for having given me this opportunity to share his glory with all of you. My loving Sai Rams to all of you here. The rather thin crowd probably is due to not a so friendly budget and then the pounding that the Indian bowlers are getting at the hands of the friendly neighborhood batsmen. Nevertheless, a Sai Satsang is a great experience. It's a great moment. It's a great blessing. We are coming to the close of the Srikhara Nama Samvatsara, and very soon we'll be getting into the Nandana Nama Samvatsara. The last 1 year has been quite painful for most of us. These were trying and turbulent times. This was a time when the one who is much dear to each one of us than ourselves chose to leave the mortal coil. In the midst of all this that happened in the last 1 year, there was, I think, one silver lining, and that silver lining is this event called Samarpan, which was taken up as an initiative by the students. Samarpan, as it means, is an offering of our moments spent with the Lord. I feel extremely humbled and privileged to be standing here in front of all of you, especially when Brother Vijay Sai, who is not here I think today, he called me last week and said, "Will you talk on the 18th? And the first thought which struck me was, why me? Looking at the speaker list that spoke from this hallowed land over the last 10 months, I am but a small fry. Nevertheless, this is truly a blessing of the Lord. I remember the last time I spoke in this hall was on the 27th of May 2006. And that was right here when Swami was seated on his throne. And I clearly remember, just before I started the talk, I went to Swami and said, "Can I intersperse in between in Kannada also? Is that okay? Is that fine?" I said, "Swami, ಏನadre ತಪ್ಪಾದರೆ ಕ್ಷಮಿಸ್ಬಿಡಿ. ಮಾತಾಡುವಾಗ ಏನಾದರೆ ತಪ್ಪಾದರೆ ಕ್ಷಮಿಸ್ಬಿಡಿ. Please forgive me if there is a mistake that I make during my talk." And Swami instantly said, "ಏನು ತಪ್ಪಾಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ನಾನು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೀನಿ." And then the talk started and it went on and at the end of it, when I again went back to thank Swami, he said, "Yen sir, yaar matadidru, nana, Nina?" And during the talk, I had to mention a particular incident where I said, after my parents left me in this large, beautiful, wonderful, yet harsh world, Swami stepped in and took control of my life, and I was narrating a number of incidents. And when Swami was retiring back behind, when he was getting into the chair, into the car, the chair was getting into the car, he had tears in his eyes, and he said, "Why do you say there is no one for you when I am there for you? I have told this to you so many times that I am there for you. Why do you always feel there is no one for you? Yen tande tayi illa andre yenaitu, naan ilva?" These words which came from him on that day, on the evening of that 27th of May 2006, was not the first time it happened. This is something which he has been reminding me time and again, time and again, and time and again. And I am probably just a figurehead in this whole conversation. I think this assurance is something which goes out to the whole world, that I am there for all of you. Taking a cue from this sentence, I am there for you, which is the topic that has been given to me today, I would like to take you all back in this beautiful divine saga, this divine romance that has been shared with the Lord of our times. We need to go back in time to, I think, 1980-81, when I was in the 6th or 7th standard, and that was my first real physical encounter in this life with Swami. I used to enjoy playing cricket. Anything to skip a class and go away to play cricket. And my mother was trying her best to ensure that I study. She was ardently devoted to Bhagwan. There was a very unique blessing that she had wherever she would be. I know this for a fact. Swami would come and talk to her. Something he would do with her every single darshan. She could be in the 10th row, she could be in the 20th row, she could be standing far away. He will somehow spot her and go to her. And she was crazily devoted to him. She was the only person from the family who used to go again and again to have his darshan, sometimes even tell a lie at home. I am going out. And the fact was, she would have gone and quickly had a darshan of Bhagwan and come back. And one fine morning, she tells me, today I will take you to see God. And she also promised and said, you then don't need to attend school in the afternoon. You can come away after lunch. To be honest to all of you, the assurance of being able to see God was not as attractive as the chance to skip school for that half a day. So promptly I returned back from school, and that afternoon we went to this devotee's house, who was, I think, a member of the Central Trust at that time, Mr. K.R. Prasad. My parents had been invited to his home. Bhagwan was visiting their house that day. It was in Palace Orchards, if I remember. And we reached a little late. So we were not able to get in, and just as we reached, Bhagwan had finished his darshan and his the bhajans in the house, and he was, I think, ready to accept Arati. So we were asked to stand right at the entrance door. The moment Arati got over, Swami came out, and I got to know that we had come to see Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba, because there is a small background to this. My grandmother, my mother's mother, had warned me that if your mother ever takes you to see Sai Baba, don't go and look into his eyes. He will mesmerize you and he will hypnotize you. Don't ever look into his eyes. And she had literally scared me on this. Imagine, later on times came where to get a glimpse of that beautiful drishti, we would go any distance. And so when I reached there and I realized that it was Swami that we had come to see, the immediate thought that went to my mind was, I should not look into his eyes. In fact, I should do everything possible to ensure that I don't have a direct encounter with him. So I went and hid behind my mother. And Swami, the moment he spotted my mother, he came straight to her. In Samacharama started off. And then she immediately pulled me to the front. And she started off, you know, Ododela, he doesn't study at all, he's always playing cricket, this, that, went on and on and on. And Swami, in a whiff, he materialized a lot of vibhuti. He put it on my head and he rubbed it. And he said, you don't worry about him, I will take care of him. This was an assurance he gave my mother. He's lived up to his word. I can vouch for it. I probably didn't realize the massive significance of what he had done. It was an encounter with divinity. It was a moment where the Lord chose to touch His creation. It was a moment which was defining in my life, but I didn't realize it then. I actually shrugged off. Even as he was rubbing the vibhuti, I remember I shrugged off. I came back home. I had a fight with my mother. I said, "Why did you have to take me there? My grandmother kept saying, don't go to see Sai Baba, and you never told me the truth." And it went on and on and on. The next few years in my life went on the lap of all the love and care that an earthly mother gives her child. Time went by, time was well spent. I remember I completing my 10th standard and then the graduation, finished my college, and then tragedy struck when suddenly, out of the blue, my mother passed away. I just finished my graduation and she passed away. And after she passed away, there was a lot of sadness within. At the same time, there was a lot of anger. The anger was actually directed at our loving Lord. I always felt when she was so devoted to you, when she was so attached to you, why did you have to take her away so soon? And this feeling kept increasing within me. When one day my sister, she said, "Let us go to see Sai Baba. He has come to Whitefield. Let's have his darshan." She would frequent the Shirdi Sai Baba temple, which is in Cambridge layout, on the eastern side of Bangalore. There was a devotee lady there, who I think is the sister of our warden. The lady wanted to come to have darshan of Bhagwan here, and my sister promised her that we will take you, and she told me, "You can come." And the incentive she gave me was, "You can drive the car," because I had just got a driving license. So that incentive really worked. I said, "Okay, I get a chance to drive the car, so let me use this opportunity and go." So I brought them all to Vrindavan, and the Sai Ram shed was there. This hall was not there. We had parked the car outside, and these three ladies got down from the car and walked in for darshan. I chose to be seated in the car because I said, "I will not go in to have his darshan. He took away my mother from me, I will not go." So I continued to sit in the car. And then suddenly I looked back and found there was a purse or some bag which was left behind. I thought one of the ladies must have left it and probably they need it inside. So I took that bag and came into the ashram to hand it over to the lady. And the moment I came in, a Sevadal ushered me and said, come on, Sai Ram, you cannot go and sit on the lady's side, and you can't go that side, you sit down." So he took me and made me sit. And that happened to me at the far end, where the sand was at that time. The shed was on that corner, and Swami would come walking from here. This was all open area. And towards the end of where the last lines ended, he made me sit there under the sun. And we were waiting for Bhagwan to come out. And from within, there was anger. There were mixed feelings. I said, "Why did you have to take my mother away? Why? Anyway, now you are coming out, I will have it out with you." And Swami so beautifully and gracefully glided himself towards the Sai Ram shed. And as he came very close to me, I suddenly got up, went on my knees, and I said, "My mother died." And Swami instantly said, "But I am there for you." And the timing of his saying that was as if he expected that statement from me. The moment I said, "My mother died," he said, "But I am there for you." It happened as if it was all pre-planned. And he goes across. There was a lady sitting with some rose petals, flowers to be offered. He takes a handful of that. He comes and puts it on me. And then he walks away as if nothing happened. He went, sat for his bhajan, and he returned back. This, brothers and sisters, was the big change. I don't know what has happened to me after that particular conversation, after that particular incident with Bhagwan. Life changed instantly from that very moment. I fell, so to speak, crazily in love with him. I became mad about him. I got obsessed. For me, the whole life, the world was just Swami, Swami, and Swami alone. There was nothing else at all. Everything changed after that one single incident. It was only him. After that darshan, a few incidents happened through which he established himself in my life. I remember soon after this, I got introduced to a samiti which is in Indiranagar. This is called Sai Darshan. And I was told that Swami would visit this place every year whenever he came to Brindavan. And that year, Swami was supposed to visit us in the month of June. I was given the job of taking care of the garden and ensuring the flower pots are kept right outside Bhagwan's room on the first floor. Swami came and then he went upstairs. He was inside his room. And at that time, one of the ladies said, the flower pot needs to be kept outside. Why have you not done it? So they said, since Swami is inside the room, you can now go and keep it outside. So I carried the pot and went up. And just when I was about to keep it right there, the door opens. And guess who comes out? The Lord himself. He comes out, he looks at me and says, hey, what is your name? So I went and told him my name. And then immediately he took his hand and 3 times he hit on the back. 3 times. And this was another incident which created a big change. It was like 3 clear assurances. I'm there, I am there, I am there. It ended with that. I went down, Swami finished his visit in the mandir, he carried on. The next few days I kept coming for darshan here, beautiful days. This hall incidentally has given humanity a chance to feast on that form. It gave us all an opportunity to touch that form. It gave us an opportunity to talk to that form. His drishti, his darshan, sparshan and sambhashan happened in this very place. Those were beautiful days. I spent my time coming here, enjoying his darshan and going back. And one fine day, he chose to again surprise me with a beautiful presence, a beautiful incident where he again took the level of his involvement in my life to the next stage. I used to go to a friend of mine near C.V. Raman Nagar to learn mathematics. Being a commerce and accounting guy, I was not really exposed to maths, and we needed to be sharp in arithmetical skills even for chartered accountancy. So I would go to a certain devotee who was a close friend to learn maths. And one fine evening, when I was driving to his home, it was I think about 8 o'clock, Bemel is the renowned factory. Right behind the Bemel gate, there is a small cement road here, eastern Bangalore, and there is a bench. And a little further away from there is a railway crossing. 8 o'clock in the evening, I am driving on my bike and I am going on that road towards this friend's house. Just before the railway crossing, I think about 200 meters before the crossing, I suddenly hear a clear voice, shh, shh, as if to say, listen. And I turn around, and to my utter surprise, I see Bhagwan in his full pristine form, sitting on a bench, happily sitting on that bench, and he is swinging his legs because his feet were not touching the ground, and the full darshan of Swami on that chair. And I rubbed my eyes and said, is this real? And I threw the bike and went near, and I actually clasped the feet. And it was real. It was real Swami sitting on that bench. And then Swami immediately gets into a conversation as if nothing happened. He says, look at the moon. I said, yes, Swami. I was shivering. I don't know. There was absolutely no control over myself. He says, look at the moon. Now there is the moon. Tomorrow morning there will be the sun. The sun will come, the moon will come. The sun will come, the moon will come. Life is also like this, he said. Good times, bad times, good times, bad times. It will go on changing. But I am with you. And he was swinging his feet, his hands were on his lap, as if nothing happened. Calmly was seated, and I was perspiring. Looking back, I wonder why that kind of an emotion came. It was a most fascinating experience to see the Lord himself, out of the blue, seated on an obscure bench off a cement road behind Bemel factory on the eastern side of Bangalore on one insignificant night. He chose to come sit there to give darshan and to give an assurance that I am there. And after that, Swami gets up and he walks towards the railway crossing, and I watch him walk. And as he comes till the railway crossing, he just disappears. And I rub my eyes. This sounded like something in Amar Chitra Katha or one of those movies. I rubbed my eyes and I said, my God, was this real? What was this that happened? And I took the bike. I must have driven like a madman back to my house. I threw the bike outside. I go up to my room, and on all the pictures of Swami, there was Vibhuti. Every single picture was full of Vibhuti. And the next day itself, and that night I developed high fever, and I was not in control of myself at all. The next day, Swami sends Mr. K.R. Prasad home, and he comes to tell my father, Swami said, he gave a vision to your son, but ask him not to get worried. Where is he now? And I was outside. My father called me in, and I was shivering. And Mr. Prasad says, Swami has told us about the vision he gave you, but you need not worry. Just remain calm. And I was speechless. I didn't even know what to say. After 2 days, I come for darshan. Hegittu. I didn't know what to answer. I was dumb. I didn't even know those days how to respond, what to say. I just kept quiet. I clasped his feet and kept crying. This incident, he did, I think, to just prove a point that this was divinity that you are encountering. This is God himself, and I will go to any extent to tell you that I am there with you. This incident gave me a feeling of intense joy from within. It gave me a feeling of belongingness. It made me realize that the earthly mother is not there anymore, but I don't need to worry because I have him for me completely. Soon after that, in January 92, Swami, again we were sitting here, he comes in his darshan and he says, Bombay. So I said, I didn't understand. What did Bombay mean? I just kept seated. He was going around, came back. Tomorrow morning, Bombay. So I didn't realize what this was all about. And I kept quiet. After darshan was over, I went into Thrai to the other side. I remember Mr. Joga Rao and Mr. Srinivas and others were sitting there. I said, Sir, Swami said, Bombay, what does this mean? So they said, Swami is leaving for Mumbai tomorrow morning. That is all that we can tell you now. We can't tell you anything beyond this. And I felt Swami must probably have meant, you also come to Bombay. Just look at the kind of audacity in the expectation. A small fry. How could I have even imagined that the Lord will want me to travel with him to Mumbai? So I said, I don't think this is the right thought, but I said, let me still go to the airport. I'll pack my bags. I'll get ready to travel with Swami to Mumbai. And fortunately, at that time, I was in the closing stages of my chartered accountancy course, and I used to file income tax returns for all the Indian Airlines employees. So these chaps were very good pals with me. So at a short notice, I could get a seat. I could also manage to tell them that I want something, which is a seat which is located very close to where Swami was seated. Swami was in 7A, seat number 7A. 7B was Mr. Radhakrishna. 7C was Sir Joga Rao. So I somehow muscled myself and got 7D. And the next morning, I land up at the airport. And because I'm pals with all these people, I get to go near the aircraft. And I'm standing there right at the foot of the flight of stairs. And Swami comes. The car door opens. He looks at me and says, "Oh, you have come." As if he didn't know at all. He had created all this, and then he makes you feel as if this was all incidental. "Oh, you have come." And then he came straight, and I said, "Swami, I am also coming with you to Bombay." "Come, come, come." He held the hand, and the entire flight of steps, he took me with him up, right up to the top. And then he goes in, "Where is your seat?" So I said, "Swami, that seat, 7D. "Ah, Kutko." So sat down. And then the flight started, and it was a phenomenal journey from Bangalore to Mumbai. I just couldn't believe myself that I was actually traveling with the Lord in the same aircraft and sitting on the same row as he was. And every time I would turn and look, what is he doing? Now what is he doing? Now what is he doing? And in between, he was opening the Hindu newspaper and showing everybody the big advertisements put up there about the welcome Mumbai was giving to Swami. He passed on the paper to everybody. And then he had some fruit which he had got. He was cutting it and passing it on. Then the crew of the flight came. He posed for photographs with them. And then a lot of people started getting up, wanting to get pictures autographed by Swami. And Swami told me, "Hey, get up, crowd control madu." So I was standing between him and the rest. And I must confess here that there was a lot of ego which came in suddenly. Because ego, like Swami said, I never gave ego to you. You people got it on the way. So on the journey from home to the airport and that flight of stairs up with him, I brought the sufficient quantity of ego with me. I was standing there, and each person would come and try to get the picture, and I would take it, give it, get it signed, give it back. With all that, the ego was pouring all out. And Swami kept looking and said, "Oh, Kutko." Because immediately he has to kill it. That is the mercy of this Lord. The moment you falter, the moment you start deviating, he will correct you instantly. There was no delay in it at all. Kutko. I immediately went and sat down. Then as the flight was about to land in Mumbai, I went up to Swami. Swami had mercifully given me 10 minutes time to talk about my mother's last days, and he said where she was now, and it was a very touching conversation with him. Towards the end, I said, "Swami, I am coming to Mumbai with you, but I have no place to stay in Bombay. So I will also be coming and staying with you only, isn't it, in Dharmakshetra?" He said, "Illa, illa." And he turned away. And I was taken aback. I said, "My God, where will I go now?" Because I had some 180 rupees or something in my pocket. And all the feeling in me was traveling with the Lord. Obviously, the Lord must have made all arrangements to stay with him. And here he very coolly says, "No, no." And then I said, "So where will I stay, Swami?" He says, "You go to Shirdi. You don't stay in Mumbai, you go immediately to Shirdi. All arrangements ನಾನು ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ," he said. So I said, "How could you do arrangements? You never told me about Shirdi. This is the first time you are telling me." Then he said, "In the airport, your uncle and aunt will come." I said, "But I have not told anybody that I am coming." "No, no, they are coming. Go and sit down." So you are left, because these are all tests to elevate a soul spiritually. The moment the Lord gives you a glimpse of divinity and then takes his feet back, takes one step backward, the craving gets intensified. When the craving gets intensified, the prayer gets intensified. That few moments before the flight landed, I must have prayed like mad. I must have prayed, what is happening? How do I go? What are the next few moments? I have been told Mumbai is a mad city, big city. People have absolutely no emotions. I'm sorry if there are anybody from Mumbai here. But I had all kinds of thoughts about Bombay, and I said, where will I go in that big world? So I just sat down, and the flight landed. The car comes, Swami gets into the car and zips off. And I am watching, oh, he's gone. And now what? Then I walk into the airport, and surprise of surprises, my uncle and aunt are standing there. And I went to them and said, "How come you people are here? I never called you all." They said, "No, a friend of ours is coming from Ahmedabad. We have come to receive him, and how come you are here?" So they were there, and I heaved a sigh of relief that there was someone known to me in sight in that big city. I went there, and then I told my aunt, I have to go to Shirdi, and she immediately arranged a bus ticket for me the same night. I went to Shirdi. The moment I landed, it was I think 3:30 or something in the morning, I reached there. A small boy comes and he takes complete control. I had not to do anything at all after I reached Shirdi. He comes, he says, "There is a room arranged for you." He takes me to one room. Then he gets a puja thali organized. Then he says, "You come with me." Those days, directly you could go to the Samadhi Mandir. He takes me there. He takes me to all the places. That next day in the afternoon, till I left Shirdi, he was my guardian, my everything. A small boy. And at the end of it, I had a fantastic time in Shirdi and had blissful darshan. Came back to Mumbai, and the heart was craving for Swami. I wanted to see him. I wanted to go to Dharmakshetra to know what is happening. And there was no news at all. People said, huge crowds. There is barricade put everywhere. My aunt said, "I will try my best to get you in, but it is very difficult." And things went on like this for 2 days. No darshan of Swami, only hearing about him from people, reading about it in the newspaper. I chose to remain contented in my aunt's place. Third day, I got to know that Swami was returning back to Bangalore. I think it was the 24th of Jan 92, if I am not mistaken, when he was planning to come back, or the 30th, something like that. 24th is when we traveled, and I think 30th he was returning, or something like that. When I got to know that he is returning back, my immediate thought was, let me try and see if I can get a seat next to him again on the way back. At least let me try to use something to get a seat again on the same row, somewhere close to him. So Mumbai, of course, I didn't know the people in the airlines. I went there, and they had booked seats in different computers. Nobody was willing to tell me which particular flight Bhagwan was taking back to Bangalore for security reasons. And the seats were also booked in different names. It was not Joga Rao, it was Rao Joga. It was not Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba, it was Baba Sri Satya Sai. It was something else for someone else. So when I was giving them a name, they said this name is not figuring in the system at all. So I got frustrated, and suddenly one person says, he is leaving tomorrow morning by so-and-so flight. And I told him I must have a seat on that flight. With Swami's grace, I got a seat on the flight, return journey also. The next morning, I reached the airport in Mumbai, and due to some reasons on the way, I got delayed. By the time I have reached the airport, the check-in had already started. So I couldn't get an opportunity to get the seat of my choice. So I was standing in the queue. 7A was Swami, again, 7B, 7C, 7D, 7E, 7F, 7G, all those seats were booked for him, for the whole troop. So the man in front of me got 7E. And I was poring over his shoulder to see what is on his boarding card. And I saw 7E. And the next was my turn. That man gave me 11. So I looked at it and I said, but I want something in that row 7. And this previous passenger was hearing. He had a horrific flight from Bangalore to Mumbai because he was on the same row while going. He's a non-devotee. Because of the crowd and the rush that was going to Swami, he didn't want to be on the same row where Swami was. So he said, is Sai Baba traveling again on this flight? The person at the counter said, yes. Then I don't want anything in row number 7. You give me something in the back. So I again got 7E, and I was seated, and Swami came. It was, I think, 6:45 in the morning when we departed from Mumbai. Swami entered the flight. He saw me, he called, and he said, "Why did you go to the mandir first? You should have gone to Dwarkamai." I said, "My God, that means he was actually keeping track and following every single movement in Shirdi. I told you that you should have gone to Dwarkamai." I said, "Swami, you never told. I told you." I said, "Swami, you only asked me to go to Shirdi. This is my first visit to Shirdi. How will I know where to go?" Then I realized the boy who was there kept telling me again and again, "First, let's go to Dwarkamai. First, let's go to Dwarkamai." And I was pushing him and telling him, "No, first the mandir, because when you come to a holy place, you must first go to the mandir." So I dragged this boy and took him to the Samadhi mandir. And this chap was adamant, "No, Dwarkamai, Dwarkamai." Swami said, "How many times I told, you didn't listen." And then I realized that the Lord had chosen one more occasion to travel a distance, to actually be there and to show us the right path. He said, "All arrangements I have made." He lived up to his word. He was there to receive at the bus stand, take me through everything, get the room booked, get the darshan organized, everything he did. We, in our ignorance, didn't follow the directions of the Lord. Unless we submit ourselves and surrender ourselves completely to the will of the Lord, it becomes very difficult for the Lord also to sometimes work through our obstinacy. We must understand that every act, every word that has come from him is bound to happen. I said, "Sorry, Swami, I'm very sorry." And then he said, "Here, Dharmakshetra Prasadam." So he gave laddu, then he gave some fruit, then he gave something. You know, with Swami, it is not one or two, it will keep coming. Once he starts, it will keep on. And he said, "Tinu." It was 6:45 in the morning, and laddu was there, something else was there, a fruit was there. Probably he knew this guy will have a fantastic appetite. So I started eating everything, finished. And the journey back ended to Bangalore. There was nothing really unique or significant which happened during the journey between Swami and me at a physical level. But one thing that happened during this trip was, I suddenly felt that he was time and again trying to choose occasions, trying to create a feeling clearly that you are mine. Somewhere I started feeling this love of his was engulfing me so intensely, steadily, that I started feeling a sense of belonging to him. I felt this body, this being, this life is only for him and for nothing else, and for no one else. This feeling was very steadily building up, and this trip was one other reminder that God will go to any extent to do anything for you. The Shirdi trip ended. We came back, lot of ego. I came back to our Samiti. You know, I went to Bombay with Swami. You know, I traveled with Swami. I meet anybody there. Yeah, recently Swami went to Bombay and he took me with him. Shirdi, he actually asked me to go to Shirdi. You don't know. My first trip to Shirdi, actually Swami himself sent me. Ego. Wherever I go, it was built up. It was coming all over. Swami decided to cut this. The next 2 years, he just cut off. He was reforming from within. There was no physical interaction at all. He would ignore, he would avoid completely. He was in a divine way present. At physical level, he made clear. In fact, there were occasions where I remember, if I'm seated at a particular place, he will ignore that entire line. He used to ignore the whole bunch of people near me. And so if people didn't want to have darshan, they could have chosen to sit next to me. It was that bad. It went on and on, and I used to cry. I used to wonder, what mistake have I done to be treated like this? And he would, the moment he spots me, he will turn the face. But little did I realize that all this was again done out of his infinite love. See, the mercy in the Lord is so great. Every act that he did and does and will continue to do will only be for our upliftment. I don't think a physical level ignorance, physically ignoring a devotee means that he is shrugging off a devotee or keeping him aside. I don't think that is the way to interpret it at all. Everything that he did was elevating us spiritually all the while. So the next 1.5, 2 years went in this intense craving for him. There was a room at home which I had made as my room with my Lord. And I had put Swami's pictures all over in that room. And there was a table, which was my study table. And I had my cot in the same room. And I used to spend all my time either doing my articleship or studying there or doing my prayer. Everything was in that room. And the way he would show his presence, Vibhuti would get covered in all the pictures. And so appropriately, on every examination day, there used to be a huge outburst of Vibhuti from the photos. And it was like ready prasadam available, so you go take Vibhuti and then go to write the exam. And I know, looking back, the only reason I can assure you this, for having done whatever little I did in my chartered accountancy and other professional exams, was only due to the grace through that Vibhuti. And Swami, in fact, mentioned this in 2007. One day he was on a trip. Whomever he was introducing me to, he said, Vinay Kumar, chartered accountant. He called somebody into the interview room. He said, Valli evaru telusa? Chartered accountant. So I said, this is becoming too much. So I said, Swami, I am nothing. You know what I am. Ellaratra ನೀವು ಹೋಗಿ, you are saying chartered accountant, what is this? ಆವತ್ತೇ ವಿಭೂತಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟೆ. ಆವತ್ತೇ ಪ್ರಸಾದಂ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಅದು ತಗೊಂಡಿದ್ದಕ್ಕೆ exam pass ಮಾಡಿದೆ. I said, when your prasadam was the reason for my passing, how can you go on introducing me like this? In fact, that room became so special. In 2010, December, I remember Swami had asked us to get an album made of the house. And he called one of our senior trustees in Karnataka Trust, Mr. Gangadhar Shetty Garu. He asked him to hold the album and he asked me to turn the leaves, the pages. He was seeing every room of the house. And when it came to this particular room, Swami says, "Ee room gottalla, ee room alle nanu vibhuti ella kottiddu. Ee room interview room," he said. So I said, Swami, what is this? He said, all the furniture you remove from that room. That room should become the interview room. Whenever I come, I'll grant interview in that room. So everything was connected. Everything had a purpose. Everything doesn't happen just due to coincidence. It is a beautiful, deliberate, divine design. It has all got a purpose behind it. These incidents where he, after my mother passed away, steadily to start doing this and drawing me closer and closer and closer and closer, and giving this reassurance time and again, I am there, reminding me through action, through words, gave me that feeling that I am his and he is mine. There is no doubt about this. That got very firmly entrenched with it. The years that followed after that had a few ups, a few downs. There are so many things that happened. For lack of time, I probably will not be able to go through all that, but I will share with you all a few beautiful incidents of his immense love, that pure, pristine love of the Lord, which only he could have given and nobody else could have given. I want to share a few of those incidents. There was one particular incident. Swami had granted us an interview on one afternoon. And towards the end of the interview, ivaga hogi hordi vibhuti. You know, these are typical. Swami at the end of the interview would signal you to get the vibhuti tray, and then once he gives you the vibhuti packets, you are supposed to take namaskar and leave the room. Vibhuti kodu. So I held the tray, he gave vibhuti, and we got up and we said, Swami, we are leaving to Bangalore now. Hogbittu ba. We got up, came out, went to the room. Swami went into the bhajan mandir. He was seated on the throne for the bhajans, evening bhajans. And we, instead of sitting there, have gone back to the room. We have started unpacking everything, dressed into my colored clothes, and getting ready to start for Bangalore. And suddenly a boy comes to the room and knocks and says, Sir, Swami is calling you back. And I said, for what? Just now we took his permission. Have I done any mistake? And I was shivering. I said, has anything gone wrong unknowingly? Have I done something wrong? I don't know. So in those colored clothes, I just rushed back to the mandir. And the last bhajan, I think, was going on. It was around 5:30, 5:35 in the evening. Aarti was about to be offered. Swami was on the throne. The registrar, our earlier registrar, he said, "Where did you go?" Swami was asking, "Come sit." So they made me sit. That was probably one of the few occasions when you didn't want to be under the direct sight of the Lord. Because I was full of fear. I didn't know what mistake I have done. And they were pushing me closer and closer and closer to the bhajan door. And I was right there, and he was on the chair, and he could see me clearly, but he was immersed in the bhajans. Totally immersed, full of that bliss. And I was hoping that when he opens his eyes, he's in a good mood. And when he opens his eyes, I don't become ash or something like that. And the bhajan ended. Aarti, and Swami slowly opened his eyes. He looked and he gave a smile. And then I knew, oh, there is nothing wrong that has happened. Nothing so drastically wrong that must have happened. If he has given that smile, everything must be fine. But I still didn't understand, why did he call us back from that room when just 1 hour ago we were with him for almost 40 minutes. Swami accepts Aarti, gets off the throne, comes till the bhajan mandir door, calls me and says, "Pada namaskara togo." So I take namaskar. He says, "Namaskara tagoldeನೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಕರೆದು ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ ಕೊಡಕ್ಕೆ ಕರೆದೆ. You are leaving Puttaparthi without taking my namaskar. I called you back so that I can give you namaskar and send you." This much love, I don't think you can get from anybody. It is impossible. Why should the Lord do it? Just imagine, we are, at least I know what I am. For a measly creature like that, to call him all the way back, to tell him I have called you to give you namaskar, this only Swami could do. I don't think anybody, no other avatar can do this. Only he could do this. There was another incident which touched me so much. It was one afternoon, it was during the days when the Atirudra Mahayagna was going on in Prashanti Nilayam. I remember one afternoon we were running around and there was a lot of work to be completed. I had not had my breakfast, I had not had lunch. A lot of work was pending for the afternoon session. And suddenly, Swami sent word around 12:45, said, "Ask him to come." I went home. I entered the dining hall. Swami was seated there. The secretary of our trust, the former secretary, was standing there. And Swami says, "Uta madilva?" I said, "Illa Swami, kutko." So I said, "Swami, how can I sit on the same table where you have your food? I will sit down." I was hungry, believe me. I was very hungry. And when somebody offers you food and when somebody offers it with so much love, how can you refuse? I said, "Swami, I'll sit down and I'll eat. Mele kutko." And he made me sit. And then he fills up the plate with everything. Then he says, "Ivattu yav divsa?" I said, "Ivattu Krishna Janmashtami." It was Janmashtami on that day. "Oh, so naan uta kodbeku." He takes his chair close. "Papa, ತಾಯಿ ತಂದೆ ಇದ್ದಿದ್ರೆ ಊಟ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು, ಯಾರು ಇಲ್ಲ, ನಾನೇ ಕೊಡಬೇಕು." So he takes every hand and feeds. And from that chair, because he had to really strain and put his hands into my mouth and give those few mouthfuls of food, I did not know what to do. I actually said, "Swami, at this moment, please take away my prana. Because I don't think I can ever have so much love again in my life. This is too much, this much of love. I don't think anybody can give to anyone. Why should he call? Why should he call and give food and feed me?" He says, "Illa bangaru thago." He goes on. I said, "Swami, your fingers, they are into my mouth. Why?" He said, "Take away my prana now, Swami, it is enough." He says, "Prana tagombitre nan kelsa yaar ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ? ಹೋಗು arrangements ಮಾಡು." As if nothing happened. He takes you into the depths of that divine love He soaks you, bathes you, immerses you in that love. And then the disciplinarian in him, the mother in him, the merciful Lord in him, to put you on the path, to teach you non-attachment. Go and do your work. So he sent me back and work went on. This incident was again so touching. Later on, in fact, once when he called home for lunch, he was feeding us with so many things. Finally, at one stage, there was some Bengan masala or something which was served. And I was not touching it. And Swami kept on watching. Then he said, "Hey, Tinu." I was trying to be too smart. I said, "Swami, idella tamsik." He said, "Nan jote yen tagondru adu satvik agate. Tinu." So he made me eat that, and of course my hand was itching to have it. But you have to prove your extra smartness, no? So then he gave chocolate ice cream, vanilla ice cream, butterscotch. They came in one ready sequence and they went through the gullet smoothly, steadily, as fast as it could. And after that he says, "Last ice cream yaudu?" I said, "Chocolate." "Chocolate tinle bardu. You must not have chocolate ice cream only. Now, anyway they have made a mistake, I'll give you fruits now." So then fruits come. Variety of fruits keep coming. And after the fruits are taken, finally when we were all coming to Swami to take his namaskar before leaving, he says, "Bangaru, uta seriyaga agilla." After all this, he says, "Next time naane ready maadi kodtini." So this kind of love on and off was a little too much to, fathom. I think it was not too much to understand, but it was too much to fathom because only God can give this kind of love. There was another beautiful incident. We have time? Every time we would go to Parthi, I would take some Nevidyam for Swami, prepared at home. On one such occasion, we had taken Khara Bundi for him. And that afternoon, he called us inside. And during the interview, he said, "Indian Samachara." So I said, "Swami, nothing." And then, "Nange yen tagond bandidya? What have you got for me?" I said, "Nothing, Swami." You see the ignorant mind, no? I couldn't even think of removing my bag and removing the vessel. I said, "Indian Samachara." He wanted it to come out. And I am not telling, I am not remembering it. Again, Bangalore-inda bhariya yeno maadi kalisirbekkalla. Your wife must have prepared something and sent. Then I realized, she gave me one bowl full of khara bundi. I said, "Haudu Swami, khara bundi ide, kodu." So the bundi is removed and I place it at his lotus feet. He says, "Salpa kodu." So that spoon, the grace, the finesse that this avatar has is something so unique. His hand movements, the way he would look at you, the way he would brush that hair aside, the way he would shrug off a mosquito if it was sitting on his robe, the way he would glance at you suddenly, the way he would put food into his mouth, everything was so perfect. The way he took the spoon, took bundi in that, like this. And one bundi fell down. And it rolled on that carpet, the interview room. And my eyes immediately shifted to that one bundi. And I decided somehow I should hold this and put it into my pocket because how can that bundi be there? And Swami was talking. He was saying all kinds of things. But look at man. Instead of focusing on the divine wisdom which the Lord was trying to shower, I was more concerned about that one small khara bundi which was rolling somewhere on the carpet. Suddenly Swami said, "Hey, adu kodu." I said, "Swami, how can I give this to you? This fell down and on the same carpet we have all been walking. How can I give it to you, Swami? It is not possible. I cannot give this. I cannot even offer it to you." He said, "Whatever is offered to me with love, I will accept. Give it." So instantly I gave it and instantly he took it. And he said, Tumma Santosha. And I was feeling guilty. I said, how could have I even offered something which had fallen down? But the Lord chose to give it a totally different interpretation. He said, anything that is offered to me with love, I will accept. This was the extent of his love. This was the extent of his compassion. He was not worried about the quantity. He was worried only about the quality. His love, I think, immeasurable. I remember two other incidents. Suddenly it comes to my mind during the Atirudram. I remember on the first day of the Yagna, it was supposed to have started in the evening of the 9th of August, the functions. And that afternoon, you know, how much of build-up had happened for this Yagna, and Swami was talking about it to everybody. And believe me, I want to say this in front of Swami today. Again, I mentioned this in front of him in Kulwant Hall during those Yagna days. Yet again in this Ramesh Hall, I want to tell you all, this Yagna, entire thing was conceived, thought, executed entirely by him. People very often make this mistake and associate us with it. We are no way connected, entirely conceived by him, executed by him. Every small thing he did, everything he did connected to the Yagna. There was nothing. He even got the ghee organized from Punjab. He got all the ahutis organized. He got the firewood organized. He got the homakundas organized. He got the rangoli to be put around the home. Everything was done by him. So I remember that morning, there was still a lot of work to be done. And Swami suddenly calls me at about 12 o'clock home. And when I enter, he says, Nodu Bangaru, if your parents had been there, all arrangements, they would have taken care. Now your parents are not there. So you don't get tensed and worried at all. You go now and sleep. You go to your room and sleep. You have good rest, get up, have a good bath, and straight you come to the hall. I will take care of all the arrangements. I said, Swami, there is so much work still pending. Allow me to finish that little work. I will go to the room at 3 o'clock. I'll have my bath and come. Beda. You should not go through. If your parents had been there, I would not have called you. Since your parents are not there, I am telling you, go to your room and sleep. And I had to obey him because whatever the Lord says should be obeyed. There are no two ways about it. Some things which he says might seem very basic on the face of it, but there would be a great significance beyond what he said. So I religiously went to the room and I took my good nap. On the day of the Yagna, believe me, that day we are starting and the whole world might have thought this guy must be very busy. Actually, I was resting in the room and Swami was busy getting all arrangements made. And I got up, had a bath, and right royally came. And at 2:45, some knock on the door. And that man says, Swami has sent flask with coffee. I said, what is this? What is the great thing that we are doing for the Lord to actually take care and send some coffee? This is love. This kind of care, that motherly care. You know, the words which he said was, if your parents had been there, it was different. Now that your parents are not there, I have to take care. Even the first morning when the Prana Pratishtha had to be done, with due respect to all the elders in the organization and in the trust, many of them said, Swami, why should you do the Prana Pratishtha early morning at 6 o'clock? Please take rest. Let us do it after 9 o'clock. And Swami called each one of them. I remember that incident where he called each one of the elders into the interview room. And I was seated there. And he would ask each one of them, this Yagna he is telling, is it all okay? And everybody gave Swami their own interpretations. And they said, Swami, it's so early in the morning, there is no need, let us do it at 9 o'clock. And Swami finally heard them all out and sent them. And Swami said, you don't worry what anybody is saying. I will come. I will come at 6 in the morning and I will do the Prana Pratishtha. And then I said, Swami, but at physical level, you should not take the strain. I will come because if your parents had been there again and again, the same thing. If your parents had been there, they would have taken care, they would have been there. Since they are not there, I have to come. So I said, Swami, so much you have done, everything is done by you. Why should you take that? No, I will come. And promptly that morning at 6 a.m. he comes. He does the prana pratishta. And when he is leaving in the car, ನಾನು ಹೇಳಿದ್ನಲ್ಲ ಬರ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತ ನೋಡು ಬಂದೆ. I told you I'll come, I have come. So this kind of concern, this kind of care, this kind of a feeling that he kept giving me that I am there. You don't have to worry that you have nobody else, I am there. This is not a feeling just given to me. This is a feeling that is applicable to the entire humanity, that God in that form is available for all of us and is there to take care of us. In 2007 March, my wife and I, unfortunately, we had a very bad road accident on our way back from Prashanti Nilayam one morning. It was a Thursday. That morning when I took permission to leave to Bangalore, the first thing Swami asked was, "Waifu barta idara vapasu?" I wondered why was he asking that, because it was a normal thing. Every time we would go together and return together. I said, "How do Swami?" Ha ha. Very disgruntledly, he gave permission. And so we sat down, and afterwards we left at about 1 o'clock from there, 12:30 I think. Somewhere near this, after the highway was crossed, when we were coming towards Chikbalapur, the Devanhalli cross, we had a terrible road accident. It was a Volvo bus hitting our car head-on. I was not driving very fast, but the bus, the road was wrongly structured there. He came and hit head-on. And the car was smashed completely. She collapsed immediately. Lot of blood. Almost a liter of blood was out. Head injury. She just became unconscious. And I was sitting and I had blood all over me, injuries all over me. I didn't know what to do. We were not even able to remove her out of the car. She was caught. And we went through a lot of trauma. I mean, it's a very long story. If I keep talking about it, it will go on for the next 2 hours, I think. A good Samaritan came. He took us to the Devanhalli government hospital. At a particular point, the hospital head said, "She is no longer there. You have to understand that she is not there anymore. She has gone cold. Everything has ended. We cannot revive her now. So now we will arrange an ambulance for you to take the body back to Bangalore." And I said, I cannot believe this. I mean, how can this happen? And the first thought was Swami. And I called one of our seniors in Puttaparthi, who went straight to Swami and reported, "Swami, nan gottu, you tell him nothing is wrong. Tell him to tell the doctors to give her an injection." And he calls me back and he says, "Swami has instructed that you should tell the doctor to give her an injection." And I go to the doctor and tell him, and that man shouts at me. He says, "What are you talking? She is not there anymore. We have already covered the body and kept. How do you expect us to give her an injection? Have you gone mad?" I said, "Sai Baba has sent this message." He says, "I don't know how to respond. You go and tell Sai Baba she's already gone." I said, "But since he has said it, you please do it." So he instructs the nurse, and that lady just takes an injection and gives, like that. And the moment that injection was given, she said. So I said, "How can she is alive? How can you say she is gone?" And then he says, this is unimaginable, and the doctors all started fretting, and they couldn't imagine what was happening in front of their eyes. And finally, they thought something had gone wrong with us. Something was wrong at a different plane. I hope you understand. They got scared that somebody whom they had declared as dead was actually making a noise and coming back. They thought something was drastically wrong, but they couldn't appreciate the fact that this was a great Leela of the Lord. And we then put her on an ambulance. It was again a lot of miracle that an ambulance got arranged. Brand new ambulance comes there with a driver in crisp, clean uniform. First time the ambulance is being driven by him. He takes us, and on the way continuously Chakravarti sir is giving information. Swami has said, "Go to Nimhans, don't worry, there is so-and-so doctor, go, take care." So we go. The doctor is waiting there. Incidentally, this doctor, Satyaprabha, is the daughter of a doctor who is to come to Swami. I think it was Narsappa. Narasappa's daughter is this Dr. Satyaprabha. We went to Nimmans and everything was ready. And I was soaked in blood, injuries everywhere. I don't know how I was even moving around. There were all kinds of injuries. She was still in almost a very delirious, unconscious state. We reached the hospital. The doctor takes her in. They do all kinds of tests. They say the thin layer of the brain got saved by a few millimeters of inches or something like that. It was a miraculous escape. They said she needs to be there for a few weeks. And believe me, in 2 days' time, with Swami's divine intervention, she got discharged. She came back home. I'm cutting this story short because we don't have time. Miraculously, he intervened and he got her out of the hospital. And that night, the night when I admitted her in the hospital, I went back home. I came home to get change clothes for her. And when I entered the house, the entire kitchen was full of glass pieces. The entire kitchen was flooded with glass pieces. And I didn't realize what was this. How could glass pieces be there in the kitchen? Anyway, I asked the lady in the house, what is this? And she was also shocked. Went back to the hospital. We went through the treatment. And all. Every day, the next 15 days, every day in the evening, Swami would inquire. He would make somebody or the other call, ask them how are they. Ask them what is happening. Today, how is she? Today, how is she? And on the second day after the accident happened, Swami, in fact, got into the car and said, take me to his house. I want to go now. And then somebody said, Swami, they are still in Nimmans. So he said, ask them to take rest. Every evening, 6:30, a call would come. How are they? How are they? How are they? After 15 days, he sent a message, asked them to come to Parthi. So we both went to Puttaparthi. That afternoon, he was seated. Swami comes at 3:45 and he takes in students' terminology, it is that square cut, the first cut on the side. The moment he comes into the hall, the first cut he took and he comes around. The moment he is entering the veranda, he says, Punarjanma Kotidini, Punarjanma Kotidini. So I went to him, I said, Swami, everything was gone and you did something which nobody can do. I mean, I didn't know how to express. What will you tell the Lord who has given life back? Call her inside. So I asked her to come. As we are entering the interview room, Swami says, Punarjanma, Punarjanma. He says, Hod janmadalli yeneno marta idri. Ee janma saigagi matra. You did all kinds of things in earlier births. This birth is only for Sai. And then he narrated the entire incident. He said how it happened. He said, I was standing on the road divider and you were crying. He said, you keep telling you have a lot of faith in me, but when you saw your wife was collapsing and dying, you were crying. You didn't even once call out to me. What is this faith that you have? And I was standing there and I was laughing at you. I said, why did you laugh? He said, Swami, how can you laugh? He said, you had no faith in me. You were continuously crying. You should have called out to me. You should have cried out to me. You didn't call out to me. But I didn't let you go. I did everything that was required. When the injection was put in, I put the prana inside, he said. In fact, after saying this, I actually started off telling you all, I told Swami, I want to narrate this incident in Kulwant Hall in front of everybody, Swami. You have to give me the permission. And he said, idಕ್ಕೆ ಇನ್ನ ಸಮಯ ಬಂದಿಲ್ಲ. ಸಮಯ ಬಂದಾಗ ನೀನು ಹೇಳು. ಇವಾಗ ಬೇಡ, ಸಮಯ ಬಂದಾಗ ಹೇಳು, he said. And I asked him many times after that. I said, Swami, permit me to tell this, permit me to tell this. And this morning, when I was sitting in my puja, and I said, Swami, at least today, allow me to share this incident in that hall, that Garland just cut. And so I decided that I must share this experience with all of you today. And after that, after this, what he said was, I'm telling you, I am not able to even now believe what he said. He said, those 15 days, Swami said, every time I used to take food and take it near my mouth, I could not eat. because I was thinking about you. He said, I have not eaten properly for 15 days. So much of love. I tell you, I don't think I deserve it. I don't think we all deserve it. So much he did. So much he's doing. We have not risen up to what he wanted us to do. We are not rising up. We are still caught in our mundane issues only. This was absolute true divinity. This was divinity in its fullest form. Can you imagine Lord saying, I could not eat because I was thinking about you? 15 days he said, Nanu uta madilla mangaru. And I held his hand and said, Swami, why? For us, why, Swami? We are not worth it. We are not worth all this love. This much love you should not give, Swami. We will not be able to take it. And somehow it ended. He gave us so much love after that. In the next few days, he kept us in Prashanti Nilayam. He took care, every time inquiring, every time asking. So much care, so much love, so much love. When he was sending us back in that visit, when we were returning back to Bangalore, he said, Inmelinda, naan gaadi hinde back seat alli naan kutkoltini. I said, Swami, he said, ನೀನು ಯಾವಾಗೆಲ್ಲ ಫಾಸ್ಟ್ ಹೋಗ್ತೀಯೋ ನಾನು ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಏನು ಚಿಂತೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಡ. ನಾನು ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಸೀಟಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಕೂತ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀನಿ. ಫ್ರಂಟಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು, ಬ್ಯಾಕಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು. And after that, there was a very mundane thought. I want to just add this incident because there was a very mundane need. The car that I had was a Wagoner, white color, which met with the accident. A Volvo bus, it's a Wagoner, you can imagine. And I incidentally, in that interview, asked Swami about the glass pieces. And he said, when the bus hit the car, all the glass pieces and the steering should have come and hit your face. I turned the steering and put it the other way, and all those glass pieces, I put it off in your kitchen. That is why all those glass pieces were in the kitchen. So he can go to any extent, brothers and sisters. There is absolutely no limit. He is here now. I know he's here. You can feel it. He's very much here. It's unfortunate we are not able to see it with these eyes. We need to elevate ourselves, uplift ourselves to an extent we can see him continuously. But he's here. It is so clearly evident he's here. After this incident was over, there was a mundane requirement at a very human, earthly level. I had to get a new car, obviously, because the car was all smashed. There was no way it could have any... In fact, people who were driving back from Prashanti Nilayam to Bangalore on that day, and they saw the car, they said, this chap is gone. He has merged. So there were a lot of rumors going on that he's already gone, because the car was completely shattered. And I then asked Swami, after a few weeks, he had stopped me from driving the car for 2 months. And then he said, Hosa car togobeka? I said, yes, Swami. Then I had a craving. I'm telling you to the extent a Lord can go, even to satisfy your mundane desires, small, petty, earthly, worldly desire. I wanted to have a big car. So I said, Swami, isali doddu car togobeku. So he says, ಕಾರ್ದು ಪೇಪರ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ ಬೇರೆ 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 ಕಾರು ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ತಗೊಂಡು ಬಾ ನಾನೇ ಸೆಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಸೊ ವಿ ಈವನ್ ವೆಂಟ್ ಡೌನ್ ಟು ದಿ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಕನ್ವರ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ದ ಲಾರ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ ಟು ಅ ಕಾರ್ ಡೀಲರ್. I got number of brochures and I wanted to buy a Honda City. It was in my innermost desire, mundane, petty desire, like I said, was I wanted to buy the Honda City. I wanted to have a grey color car. Just because I said the color should be the color of Swami's car. So I get all the brochures and Swami patiently in the interview room goes through every brochure. He asks the background of the companies. I mean, those companies and those products were so blessed that his drishti fell on all their products and those companies. But he went through all that and finally he says, Beda Bangaru, chik gadi itkondre saku. Dodd car Beda Bangaru. But I was arguing. Illa Swami, dod car beku Swami. Please allow me to buy this car. And then he says, Beda Bangaru. Then he tells my wife, he comes through the other route. He tells her, you should tell him it is not correct to have a big car. Very difficult. Nowadays, lot of traffic is there. Ashram, people are moving around. I said, Swami, 24 hours I am not in the ashram. I have to travel from Bangalore to come. And in Bangalore also I need the car. I said, illa, chikk gaadi saku. Naane kodtini, chikk gaadi tagold bartini. Nannatra cars ide, small cars ide, naane kodtini. I said, Swami, I want to buy this car only. You know, hata, adamance. And then he says, Aitu. Itko. So I go ahead and I buy the Honda City car. And proud owner of the car. And I drive it to Parthi and come. And I get the keys. And I keep it for Swami to come and bless. When he is blessing it, no, he says, Chanagila gadi. I said, Swami, tumba olle car Swami, smooth agide. Chacha, chanagila. Then he is not touching the key only. He is touching the rose on the plate, he is touching the edge of the plate, he is touching everything else, but the key he is avoiding. And I am trying to push the key near his hand somehow, and he is master craftsman. I mean, how can you play games with the Lord? Everything is known. He had decided it was just a temporary accommodation to satisfy the mundane desire of a devotee. The devotee wants a car, okay, let him have the joy of owning the car. Ultimately, I will show him the right path. So he avoided touching the key. And something within me felt, that key he didn't touch, no, that key he didn't touch, something is wrong with this car. You know, that feeling started. And you will not believe me, brothers and sisters. You can ask anybody, Honda City is supposed to be a smooth drive. Right from that day, this was I think the second day after we got the car, this car was giving me a rough ride. Each time I sit and I try to drive, I'm getting a rough feeling. I'm not getting even 1/100th of the smoothness of the Maruti WagonR. And Swami purposely, every time, Hosa gadi hengide. And he will be passing and suddenly, new car, like this. So one day I said, Swami, a karu tumba rough agide. Kotbidu. I just tried to see if he will say, okay, I'll make it okay or something. Could be do, instantly. No? And in a matter of a few months, it was a terrible experience driving that car. I almost started hating it. And then I one day went to Swami and said, I made a big mistake, Swami. I don't want that car. I want to give it off. Kotbidu, said. And I got a buyer and sold the car. And then Swami says, buy the same type of car in which you had the accident. I said, Swami, psychologically, it will create nightmares for us if we have the same car. Illa, ade car togo. So I said, you wanted us to have a small car. I'll get you brochures of many small cars. So once again, Bhagavan Baba becomes a car dealer. Again, I take brochures. And this time it is, the i10 and all those, the Skoda, the small car, the Maruti's other one, all kinds of small cars I took. And Swami immediately picked out the WagonR and said, this is not some kind of a publicity for WagonR, incidentally. I mean, I'm not marketing for WagonR or I'm not part of Maruti Suzuki in any sense. But he instantly picked it out and he said, "E car e tago, a car color white itala, white e tago." And he made us buy the same white color WagonR. And he said, go, get the car, bring the keys. So much of, because he knew that was right. He knew it was important for us to not have a big profile. He knew he was teaching a lesson in contentment. He was teaching a lesson in keeping a low profile. He was teaching a lesson to show the devotee that lead a life which is not necessarily ostentatious. Those were the messages that were coming forth. Not that he didn't want a person to have a big car or a small car. The moment I take the keys, I had kept it inside a pouch. And the pouch was in my pocket. And that day happened to be some function in Prashanti Nilayam. Some one of the districts had come and they were putting up a drama or something like that, and Swami was there. He had come, he was already witnessing. I reached Kulwant Hall late, so I was seated there in the veranda, and I was hoping that after Aarati, Swami will probably, look at me at least, and then I get a chance to go and tell him that the car has been bought. And you will not believe, even as the program was going on, even as the drama was going on, Swami comes backstage. He comes straight there. Car tagondya? He said, yes. Key kodu. And I got the key and Swami blessed it. So this is an incident to make us feel that mundane desires, mundane thoughts also He will satisfy. Everything He will satisfy. He is there for us. Whatever He does is in our interest. Nothing that He did or does or will continue to do will ever be against our interest. We need to be available to Him. We have to be available for Him to shower that mercy on us. That is all that is required. The timing is important. There were a few. Do we have time? How much time? 10 minutes. Okay. Are you all getting bored? Okay. I'll take two more. One of them is quite a funny incident, but these come to my mind immediately. Two more incidents where he sort of was trying to convey a message. And the Lord chooses His own style to convey a message. His style is different, One day, I was sitting in the interview room. Suddenly, I incidentally don't know how to sing bhajans. I incidentally don't know anything much about Vedam. Total murkha. God will accept people in spite of all deficiencies, because that is His mercy. One afternoon, I was sitting at His feet. Suddenly He says, hey, how do I look to you? Swami said, hey, kanistini. And like this, I have taken permission to narrate this from Swami directly, and I'm sure he will not be angry with me for this, because there was a much greater message which he conveyed through this. And then I said, Swami, suddenly I felt I should now praise the Lord to the skies. This is the only opportunity. I said, Swami, you are Parabrahma Swarupa, you are the greatest, you are the most beautiful, there is nothing that is beyond you. Hey, chacha, naan hegidini ivaga, nodak hengidini. How do I look to you? Tumba sundaravagiddira, Swami, I said. Then I said, Swami, if you permit, I want to sing one small bhajan. Look at the audacity. Somebody who cannot sing bhajans, he's having the audacity to tell the Lord Himself, who is Saraswati Sakshat, that I will sing a bhajan for you. Just look at the audacity in me. I had the guts to tell him that I will sing a bhajan for you. Hello. He knew that this is an absolute Sangeeta Shunya. But the mercy in him gave that opportunity. So I said, I started singing that bhajan, Sai Sundara. I actually don't have the guts to even sing it now, because there's still a lot of that ego, but I'll venture into it. I said, Sai Sundara, Sundara. Cha, stop madu, he said. And I said, what is this? I'm trying to put in my best and say that I can sing. And he just admonishes you like that. I didn't leave. I continued. Cha, stop madu, he said. Then I held his hand and I said, Swami, raga tala ilde irbodu, bhava ide. Kelelebek neevu, I said. And you'll not believe, like a small kid, Aitu Bangaru, helu. And then with rapt attention, Swami heard the entire song. His eyes are closed, he's in total bliss. Total bliss. And there were portions of that song as you proceed further where I was also crying, he was also crying, and I was looking at his face. It was becoming even more and more and more beautiful. The whole face was glowing like that. And then suddenly he opens, Aita, he said, Swami, ಎಷ್ಟು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಅವಕಾಶ ಕೊಟ್ರಿ. Then he says, ಭಾವ ಇದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ಅವಕಾಶ ಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ. If the feeling is there which is pure, I will give an opportunity. Bhava is the key, not anything else. That feeling should be there. It was a very great message. Telling you, it was, he chooses something to pass on some other great message to you. Similarly, Ashadi Ekadashi day was being observed in Prashanti Nilayam. And I think the Mumbai organization which takes care of this, they had arranged for a very great musician to sing that evening. I will not take the artist's name for obvious reasons. But after the entire program got over, Swami came into the interview room and called me inside. This was after Aarti in the evening. And Swami says, "Hey, songs hegittu." I thought you are supposed to praise the artist, no? Because he sat through that for 1 hour, and at the end of it, he created some chain and all that also for that lady. So I said, Swami, yen adidru Swami, eshtu channagittu Swami, Meera bhajansu, yen bhava, chacha, adu kacheri, he said. Bhavane irlila. Naan aadtin nodu, he said. And then he sang Payoji Mene. And I'm telling you, brothers and sisters, the beauty, I should use the word, the devotion. God showing devotion in his song. Mirabai was sakshat there. He was singing a few verses, he would stop, then cry, talking about Mirabai. This went on for 40 minutes. He narrated the troubles Mirabai went through. And he said, in spite of those troubles, she was crying out to Krishna. That bhava has to come out when you sing. ಆ ಭಾವ ಬಂದರೆ ನನಗೆ ಸಂತೋಷ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಸರ್. And he sang Payoji Mene, the whole song he sang. And after that I said, Swami, ಎಷ್ಟು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದೆ, ನೀನು ಆ ಆರ್ಟಿಸ್ಟ್ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದೆ ಹೇಳಿದೆ, ಆ ಆರ್ಟಿಸ್ಟ್ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದ್ದಾರಾ, ನಾನು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದ್ದೀನ, ಯಾರು ಬೆಟರು? And I said, Swami, obviously it is you only. The artist is after all your creation. Whatever you did now was to convey another message only. So he wanted bhava. It was that inner feeling, that sincerity, that feeling of oneness with the Lord. Once it gets translated to actions, in word, deed and action, then obviously the Lord's grace will flow. That mellifluous grace will incessantly flow. There was another very funny incident, 5 minutes? Yeah. Where Swami, he wanted to teach another lesson. And he took a lot of pain for this. I used to take papers to Puttaparthi whenever we had to, submit something to Swami or discuss about a project. I used to take them in a loose form, loose leaf, all in a folder like that. And Swami watched once, twice, thrice, 4 times, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. He kept watching. Then suddenly one day he said, you should not bring papers like this. You should carry it in a bag, proper bag. So I said, Aitu Swami, I'll get a bag. Next day itself, Swami comes with a bag. And Swami calls inside and says, Nodu, naan ninigagi bag tagondu bandidini. And it was a beautiful tanned color, beautiful like a hand briefcase, nice bag, executive bag he brings, and he says, Vadagnadi. So he takes me inside and he says, Ee bag itko, inmelenda papers ella tagond barvaga ee bag alli hakond tagond ba. I said, I was so grateful to him that he gave the bag, and I came out. After that, I was feeling very conscious that I am going to Bhagwan, carrying a briefcase kind of a thing. You feel very awkward when you are going to Swami with a bag and all that, It's like you're going to office or something. So what I would do is I'd hold the bag like this and walk. And Swami saw one day, and then the second day, and I think it was coming up. Something was about to burst. It was waiting to come out. 3rd, 4th day. That grim face, he said, go in. I went in and I was shivering. He says, Buddhi illa ninge, he said. I said, Yenaitu Swami? Marriage broker tara barta idya, he said. Yenitu bag hingitkondu marriage broker tara barta idya. Swami had a typical way of doing this. ಮ್ಯಾರೇಜ್ ಬ್ರೋಕರ್ ಥರ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ, ಪುತ್ತೆ ಇಲ್ಲ ನಿನಗೆ, ಈ ಸೈಡ್ ಕೂತ್ಕೋ, ಈ ಸೈಡ್. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ he was vigorously wiping his mouth and then he said, ಬ್ಯಾಗ್ ಕೈಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇಟ್ಕೋ, 10 ಸಲ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಡಿ ಬ್ಯಾಗ್ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು. I said, what is this? So I held the bag and I'm so conscious because I didn't want to hold it like this. I mean, he will use some other term. I didn't want to hold it properly because I didn't know whether that is correct. I didn't know whether I should keep the bag on my head. What should I do? I somehow was shaking and walking. Straight agnadi. And he is all the while calmly reading letters. He is sitting on the chair and reading letters. And occasionally he will say, nadi, nadi. And again he is reading. And this is going on for about 5 minutes. I am going up and down the interview room, up and down, up and down, up and down. Stop madu. Because he had finished reading the letter. He calls and then he says, Nodu Bangaru, bag itkonduvaga ಧೈರ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಬೋಲ್ಡ್ ಆಗಿ ಚೆಸ್ಟ್ ಹೊರಗೆ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೆಡ್ ಹೈ ಆಗಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ನಡಿಬೇಕು, ಹಿಂಗಿಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ನಡಿಬೇಕು, ನಡಿ. ಎಸ್ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಐ ವಾಕ್ಡ್. ದೆನ್ he says, how should you use the bag? So he opened the compartments. He says, this compartment keep all these kind of papers, this compartment keep these kind of papers. Then if you have money, put it inside the zip. Then there was a small key. So he says you should lock the bag. Every time lock the bag, keep the key. You can't believe anybody here. So lock the bag and keep the key with you. ಈ ಥರ ಇಟ್ಕೋಬೇಕು ಬ್ಯಾಗು. He spent so much time in guiding how you should walk with a bag. And after that, I don't know, many of you must have probably seen me going to Puttaparthi with that bag. It was a tanned color, maroonish color bag. And every time Swami, after that, the next 2-3 times, he will call and say, bag itkondu nadi first. So once you get into the interview room, the first exercise was to walk with the bag. And people would think this guy is carrying some massive stuff in the bag. The fact was, those Naivedyams which we used to take to Swami and the papers, and actually the bag was being carried because there was a drill going on inside. And after 1 month, he said, ಈಗ ಸರಿಯಾಗಿ ನಡೀತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ, ಇನ್ಮೇಲೆಯಿಂದ ನೀನು ಬ್ಯಾಗು ತಗೊಂಡು ಆರಾಮಾಗಿ ನಡಿ. So he spent all those sessions just to teach how to move around with a bag. To this extent, the Lord can go to drive in perfection. Because he had this penchant for perfection. For him, everything had to be immaculately done. Everything had to be done precisely. Everything had to be done in a certain manner. There was no letting up. There was no compromise at all. Everything had to be done up to a certain level of perfection. Once he got convinced that the way of holding the bag was right, he gave up. Like this. Yeah. You can go on and on and on and on and on like this. There were innumerable occasions which he took, to drive home points which you felt were so simple, but the Lord spent so much time trying to guide you on this. I must tell you that towards the last few months when Swami was in that mortal coil, ignorance, I think it was within us. He time and again said, ಬೇಗ 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 ಕೆಲಸ ಎಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋ, ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ಹೇಳದೆ ಇದ್ರೂ ನೀನು ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. I said, Swami, where are you going? You will always be there for us. In fact, our prayer is we should go away and leave this body even when you are still with us. ಇಲ್ಲ, ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ಏನು ಶಾಶ್ವತವಾಗಿರ್ತಾರ? You must understand, to lead a life based on Swami's principles. He was giving a lot of indications. He was giving a lot of rapid instructions. I remember towards the end, one very touching incident. It happened, I think, somewhere after the sports day of 2011. Suddenly, Swami one day said, where is your house? So I said, it is in Bangalore. Then he says, Mysuralli ilva mane? I said, illa Swami. Mysuralli mane madu. I said, why should I have a house in Mysore? There is no need. Then he takes the trouble of identifying a land in Mysore, pushes us to buy the land in Mysore, and he says, Swami, ivaga ಮತ್ತೆ ಇದೇ ಥರ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ, ನಾನು ಏನೇನು ಇನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನೋ ಬೇಗ ಮುಗಿಸ್ಬಿಡು. I said, what is the hurry? Why are we in this mad rush for what? But little did we realize that the Lord was trying to usher in a certain kind of life for all of us. He was trying to tell us clearly, we didn't understand, that He is there always for us, but we will be bereft of that physical guidance probably. I feel I have had a few heart-to-heart conversations with Swami about the students and their role. And I sincerely feel, every time he would talk about students, tears and the sense of pride and the sense of, they being mine was always there. I feel the world is actually looking up to the students of Satya Sai. There is a great onerous responsibility on the students to lay the road ahead, to show the path, which has already been carved out by Swami. They, I think, have to get hugely involved in the mission from now. And I always will consider myself to be unfortunate to not have been a student of Bhagwan's university. But I feel I want to look up and follow the path that is going to be laid by the students. His students are the only hope for mankind. There is no other hope for mankind today other than the role which the students will play. A big initiative in this direction is already underway with the Vidyavahini program, but I am sure in the days, months and years to come, his students will rule the world. They will show the direction. Everybody will tame themselves and follow his students. There's a tremendous responsibility on the students. The feeling, because he has touched them, he is a part of them directly. I don't think Swami ever spoke about my properties. The only property he said was his were his students. Finally, getting back to the topic which Vidyadhar and other senior alumni gave me, I am there for you, is what he said. It is very painful. I keep asking, Swami, where are you? Now where are you? I want to see that form. I want to touch that form. I want to feel that form. I want to talk to that form. It's okay. Let people say you are physically getting attached to him. Doesn't matter. After all, such a beautiful avatar will not come again. It happened once. That will be the grandest, the most beautiful avatar that humanity has ever witnessed in any yuga. We miss him. Each one of us here misses him a lot. And the question comes, where are you, Swami, now? Why is it I'm not able to see you? But I'm steadily getting reconciled to a fact that if there is this intense craving from within, if there is that heart-to-heart sort of a prayer, instantly he manifests himself. He doesn't, just as he would do when he was in that mortal coil, instantly he's there. In fact, I feel we should put our hands on our chest and say, not ask him, not say Swami is saying, I am there for you. I think we need to ask ourselves, are we there for him? We need to be there for him to work through us. Our lives becomes his message. I think we need to raise up and we need, because so much love, so much care, so much of guidance, I don't think any avatar ever gave. It is time for us to pull up our socks, become one. All should be one. It should all be a united effort. And we should all have one common agenda to take forward Swami's love, Swami's message on service, on love, on compassion to the whole of humanity and make the whole of humanity into one large, big Sai family. Jai Sai Ram.